O Lord, in the morning shall I direct my prayers unto thee, and will look
And so would you pray with me? Our God, we gather in this moment of time to be people that hear a good word from you. They're invited into the wonder of your kingdom. And so today, would you be among us in our hearing, in our prayers, in our lives. Surprise us, amaze us, but most of all, prepare us, so that we may be a people marked by the joy that we have. For you have been good to us. So be among us in these moments, is our prayer. In Christ's name we ask. Amen. Okay, so we'll do the old-fashioned hand mic. Cool. Much of what we are about at this church is trying to live into this mission statement, that we engage and embrace all as we seek to embody Christ. And this weekend has been one of these weekends that brings immense joy to me because of what has been happening around our campus. So just to give you a flavor of what's happened in the last 24 hours, yesterday in this space was a project that we partner with other agencies called the Bella Project, in which about 100 teenage girls come into this space and they transform it into a shopping experience so that they can get gowns for dresses, tiaras, and it's this experience for them to feel like a normal teenager. And they come and spend part of their day here and are blessed beyond measure from all these volunteers. Not only that, but in the parking lot over in the Punahou parking lot was the e-waste recycling event, in which we filled 3 box truck full of recyclables that aren't going to landfills and instead are going to be recycled in such a way that's good for our earth. Not only that, we also had the thrift shop open yesterday. And yesterday was like every other day at the thrift shop. There were lots of people coming and going and buying goods that were once someone's that now have been reused or recycled and given to someone else. And the amazing thing to me about the thrift shop is that last year they raised $100,000 at the thrift shop, right? Huge. And of that, 70,000 of it went out to the community and into the world at large. And so the vast majority is given away. And then, not only that, Brandon and I got to do weddings yesterday. And as people that do weddings often, there's something remarkably awesome about being the minister at a wedding, because you're like that close to them the whole time. So you see all their faces they make and the things that they whisper to each other. And yesterday, this couple that I married, I don't know about what your wedding was like, but they couldn't stop giggling. They were so in love. It was beautiful. And they were so excited to be together in that moment and share their lives together forevermore. And then if that wasn't enough, after that was done and the campus started clearing out, there was a group of guys in here resetting this place like this so that we could worship today. That was just yesterday. This morning, it all started all over again at 6:15 as we started coming on campus to get ready for the 7 o'clock service. And we have seen this remarkable day unfold that's just beginning. Today at 4 o'clock, you're invited to come back to the sanctuary. Our head of our denomination, the big dude, the Pope of the Popes, we won't go that far, is here. And he's going to be preaching at 4 o'clock, and Brandon and I, along with a bunch of other ministers, are going to help lead worship for all the churches of our community, of our denomination. This is a huge honor to have Reverend Dorhauer here worshiping with us. And after that, we're going to come back in here and eat. And all these churches around our island are bringing food from their different ethnic heritage. And so you're welcome to come and eat. And as soon as this is done, we're going to be rude and kick you out because we have to reset this whole space for dinner tonight. And then when they're done with dinner, we're not done, because tonight's Family Promise. And we kick off Family Promise, and we thought we were just going to use that room as the dormitory, but there was a problem over on the windward side with the church, and they called yesterday frantic, and Martha called and said, I know we don't have space. We have a really busy weekend, but there's nowhere for these families to go. And so we said, as Bob the Builder said, can we do it? Yes, we can. And so we're going to turn that space after dinner into the other dormitory for the families. And so this week we're going to have twice the number of families here helping get their feet back underneath of them. And the coolest story about all of it, yesterday when Martha and I were talking, Martha's up in the balcony if you want to know who I'm talking about, was that she said, the past month was really weird. We normally don't get a lot of monetary donations, but this month we got $600 in monetary donations. Coincidence? I think not. Because what we know is that we're going to have to double everything that we're doing this week. And yet, we have a congregation that's willing to do it. You all are living into engaging and embracing all as we seek to embody Christ. And that's just one 48-hour period on this campus. It happens every day in the preschool and in different groups that are meeting, and in funerals and in weddings and in the countless other ways that these facilities are used. And because of your generosity, we are able to do that with the whole entire community. And so I thank you all at Central Union for being a blessing beyond measure and allowing us to bless countless individuals. And just this weekend, hundreds of people because of what you are willing to do as a church. So today's theme is joy. I have lots of joy. You know that old song, I got the... Where? Very nice. It's like a song that we sing at preschool chapel, but we should sing as a people. And so a couple of weeks ago, or maybe about a month ago, I went to Albuquerque to go begin a 2-year process of a group called the Living School. And among this group are 3 spiritual giants in this world of ours. And one's Richard Rohr, Cynthia Bordeaux, and James Finley. And as they sat at the opening session, it was amazing. They sat up on the stage with 3 chairs. And what I remember from the session wasn't anything that they actually said. It was the joy that emanated from them. They would start laughing, and it went from just like a laughter to a belly laughter with each other. And what I noticed about them was they were joyous all the time. Not fake, but true joy. In the hallway, when you see them walking down the hall, they were joyous. When I got in the elevator with one of them to go upstairs, he just had a smile across his face. You could just feel the joy. And then this week on Facebook, I saw a new advertisement for a book put out by Desmond Tutu, Archbishop in Africa, along with the Dalai Lama. And so I clicked open and started watching it. And here's 2 other spiritual giants who are laughing as hard as they can as they're talking about what does joy mean. What strikes me is that these 5 spiritual giants of our time, joy is a part of their normative experience. How many of you have ever experienced joy? In case if you can't remember a joyous moment, here's a couple ideas. The moment that you stood in front of your beloved and said, I do. And the smile couldn't be taken off of your face. It was stuck. Or maybe it was the moment that you had your first child, or second child, or third child, or however many children you have. And you held them. And you looked in their face, and there's no words that you can use to describe that experience. It's pure joy. Maybe it's a piece of music that you heard. Like, for me, the Hallelujah Chorus, I just erupt with a smile. Or 2 years ago at Christmas Eve here, we changed the service, and we ended with a song called Joy to the World. And we had all these trumpets and trombones behind us, and the organ was turned up as loud as it could go, and they blasted Joy to the World. And we left and went into the night, floating with the joy of what we're celebrating Christmas Day. Joy. It's this experience that we have of life. But how do we make it not just momentary, but a way of our being? Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said this: joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. Joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. In our scriptures, joy is used often. It's this idea, this way of being That is honestly this week, as I thought, man, this sermon is going to be so easy this week. It's joy. How hard can it be to talk about joy? But I got stuck on a question. What's the difference between happy and joy? Is there a difference in your mind between being joyful and being happy? Well, for me, I had to study deeply and think deeply about it. Is there a difference? And as I studied our scriptures, I realized there's actually quite a big difference. You know that happy isn't really ever used in the Bible? That we have this notion in America that the highest gift of faithful living is that we become happy. And yet our scriptures don't talk about happiness. Unless if you retranslate blessed of the Beatitudes as happy are those. Blessed are those. Instead, the optimum word in our scriptures is the word joy. And joy is a response that is lived out. And so we're going to jump into Psalm 30, this great psalm of David. And as Brandon shared, the Psalms are our worship book. They're prayers. They're guides to us along this journey, giving us words to the feelings that we've had. In this psalm, Psalm 30, is a psalm of thanksgiving. David is writing this psalm as a way of saying, thank you, God, for all that you're doing and all that I've experienced in my life. And there's a part of it that really strikes me as interestingly impactful towards the end when he says, you changed my mourning into dancing. You took off my funeral clothing, the sackcloth, the symbol of my mourning, and instead, you dressed me up in joy, so that my whole being might sing praises to you and never stop. Lord my God, I will give thanks to you forever. Here's the interesting thing about joy. Joy is only realized after we become thankful. Joy is the response of thankful living. We gather around this table, and what do we call this? The Lord's Supper. Communion, or one other word, the Eucharist. Eucharist literally means thanksgiving. This is our Thanksgiving meal that we gather around to consume as a way of saying, thank you, God, for what you have done. We are a people that are invited into a way of being that we live with eyes wide open and thankfulness. And thankfulness begins to mark our lives, and out of our thankfulness, joy erupts like a wellspring. How many of you have seen something today to be thankful for? All of us should have our hands up. You see, part of learning what spirituality is, it's actually learning how to see. And so part of our job in the Christian faith is teaching each other how to see what is already here, of having an awakening, of eyes wide open. And so David says that we are people that are invited into this different way of being in order to see clearly. In the New Testament, the writers of the New Testament don't use the word happy, they use the word joy. The fruit of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, right? These are these things that grow out of us because of what God's doing within us. And they're not just for us. Like all fruit trees, they're there for others to consume. And so joy in our New Testament scriptures have this beautiful idea of what it means to be a joyful people. The word that is translated, kara, means this, literally, the awareness of God's favor and grace. That's joy. An awareness of God's grace and favor. Or as one author said, grace recognized. Everything that we have, everything that we are, everything that we do, it is all grace. Awakening, living, sleeping, eating, living, this moment, it is all grace. And so when we see it as all grace, our natural response is to say, thank you. And thank you wells up inside of us because we look at every part of our lives through the lens of gratitude, even when life is tough. We all go through the desert. We all go through the times of mourning and of loss. of wondering what is the purpose of this life. And yet in the midst of that space, the great spiritual teachers will all teach you that the joy never leaves you. It may not be a happy time, but yet you're joyous. It's an oxymoron, isn't it? And yet the deeper you go in this faith, the more you realize it's true. That the joy that's inside of you wells up because you have so much more to be thankful for than not. One of my favorite authors, Brennan Manning, was writing about the reality of love that we find ourselves in. And he's looking at what's happening in the world around us, and especially in the American church. And he's asking a deep question. Why does it seem like so many people that call themselves Christians seem so unhappy? Why is it that the people that proclaim good news, you would think it's bad? Why is it that so many people have a sour face upon their countenance instead of being these people that are erupting in joy all the time? So this is what he writes. I believe that the real difference in the American church is not between conservatives and liberals, between fundamentalists and charismatics, nor between Republicans and Democrats. The real difference is between the aware and the unaware. When somebody is aware of that love, the love that God has for us, that love is the same love that the Father has for Jesus, that person is just spontaneously grateful. Cries of thankfulness become the dominant characteristic of their interior life, and the byproduct of gratitude is joy. We're not joyful and then become grateful. We're grateful, and that makes us joyful. We're grateful, and that makes us joyful. What does this look like in actual real life? If you put it flesh to it. One of the churches I served, there was an elderly man that came every Sunday, about 5 minutes before worship started. Big smile across his face. And I always say to him, "How are you today?" He'd smile and say, "The grass is green." He'd walk into the church, sit down, he would sing every hymn that came. He would stay awake through every sermon, God bless him. He would be attentive in prayer. And after worship, he would gather and hug people and bless them and then go and say, "I'm going to brunch." And he'd leave. After a year of this, I thought, I want to know what he says to me, "The grass is green," every time I see him. And I had seen him at a grocery store, and I noticed that the same smile he had at church was the same smile he had at the grocery store. So one Sunday I said, Can I offer you a cup of coffee that we could sit together and I could just ask you about life? So we sat and we started chit-chatting together. He told me about life when he was in the war, and coming back from war and meeting the woman of his dreams and the joy of that, and getting his first job and then losing his first job, then finding another job and then having kids and then buying his own house, traveling a bit throughout his life, and watching his family grow. I said to him, "You always use this phrase, 'the grass is green.' What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, at my age, I'm about 90 years old, I have two choices in life. I'm either going to be looking at the green side of the grass, or I'm going to be looking at the roots. I prefer the green." And I found it incredibly amusing, but also incredibly insightful. Every morning when he woke up, he saw that day as a gift. And so he said, "Thank you for this new day." And how that this wellspring of joy rose. Not too long after that conversation, he passed away. And so as I got with his family to plan his service, and we started talking about what should we do, the kids started laughing. And they said, "My dad always said the same thing whenever we called. 'Dad, how you doing?' The grass is green." And for them, it was a reminder that there's always something to be thankful for. No matter how bad the day may be, the grass is green. I'm alive. And each day he looked in his own life for how God was at work in him and around him. Today, I want to offer you a challenge. Not only because you all take this home and do it every week, your take-home work, so don't forget it, but add to it a challenge. This is your mission, if you so choose to accept it. is every day this week, begin your day by making a list of everything that comes to your mind that you have to be thankful for. Everything in your life that you have to be thankful for. I promise you, if you sit with it for a while, that list is going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow. We are a people that have so much to give thanks for. We are blessed beyond measure. And the problem with our culture and humanity in general is that we can always look at someone else and say, man, their grass is really green, without ever looking at our own grass that we're standing on. And so this week, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to take your take-home work, go deeper in your faith, but start looking for gratitude everywhere. And when you see it, a wellspring of joy will rise, and you'll become, as the great spiritual teachers throughout all generations, a most joyous people. Not because of the situation you stand in, but because of the God in which you serve. And so may we be grateful together and celebrate the God who has always done far more than we could have done by ourselves.